watched the funny Marvel movie, and then their parents.
Right, Morena, everybody, welcome to this workshop. Can I just at the outset thank staff for all of the work that's gone into today's workshop, both in terms of the agenda and what will be presented to us. So thanking them in advance of some very good presentations. Just to let you know that this particular workshop's got both an open and a public excluded section to it. Obviously the public section will be recorded and available on our council YouTube channel as soon as possible after this meeting. Just to let you know that the public excluded session will also be recorded, but only for the purposes of minute taking. So in terms of rules of engagement, a little bit challenging today, but if people on Zoom could raise your digital hand when you're wanting to speak, please, and members in the chamber, I'd be grateful if you could raise your physical hands. So without further ado, we have got apologies from Councillor Brunning and Councillor Rose, and for lateness from Councillor Thurston and Councillor White. So there's no resolution required.
Councillor Eaty.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Councillor Eaty. So no resolution required. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to the Water Science and Policy team to give us about a 30-minute update and discussion on the Freshwater Policy Programme. So who's leading the charge here? Gemma, James? Okay. So Gemma, are you?
Second lead.
Good. Welcome. And over to you.
Okay, I'll just share my screen. Okay, I'll minimize that. I won't be able to see anyone's hands up while I'm sharing, so just interrupt me if you want. And I'll be presenting the first part of this, and then James and Malia will present the science tool. So if we want to just do questions at the end, otherwise just interrupt me once I've finished my one. Okay, so I'm just here to talk to you quickly on visions and environmental outcomes and show you our new Participate tool, which will be going live in about a month. Okay, hopefully change. There we go. So last year I showed you our first round of engagement online on values and outcomes engagement, and we had more than 2,200 visits to the site and almost 300 pins dropped on our virtual map, which you can see there. Just to give you a quick little breakdown of what came out of that, the most popular values for feedback were recreational human contact and ecosystem health. There were no contributions received around the economic benefits of using water for industrial or commercial agricultural purposes. We do have good coverage of those values already from consenting information, so they may have considered that it wasn't necessary to add spots. Otherwise, we also have other avenues for them to provide feedback, such as the Rural and Environmental Sector Organisation Forum, or through public engagement next year. Contributions on, opinions on current state. So most people who responded were happy with the current state of the sites that they had registered. 13% were either unhappy or very unhappy, and the common issue was degraded water quality. And by FMU, the most popular one was Rotorua Te Aroha Lakes, which is probably not that unsurprising, and 64 spots were entered for Tauranga Moana as well. There were some common places where people weren't as happy as others, and those were places like Kaiati Falls, Uritara Stream, Puringa Stream, and Lake Rotorua. Okay, so this is our new site, so hopefully this works. Okay, hopefully you can now see a screen which says essential freshwater visions and outcomes. Okay, so this is our draft site for gaining feedback on visions and environmental outcomes. We have a have your say area, and they're going to pick the FMU that's of interest to them. Okay, so when you click on the link on the water drop, comes up with a little brief description of the freshwater management unit, and they click on what do you think, and it takes them through to a short little survey where they can select the values that are important to them and whether they want to maintain or improve those. So for example, if we click on recreation, it comes up with a sliding scale of how do you feel about the freshwater recreation in this area? So you can be happy with the current state, you could think it needs improvement a bit, or significant improvement. And then at the bottom of this, there is a question about whether or not the values are across the whole FMU or relate to a specific area that they're providing feedback on. So what we've done is we have grouped the 14 values that we have into about 7 to make it a little bit less wordy. But where we've grouped them, there's another drop down to let us know what value specifically they're talking about, whether it's irrigation, cultivation, commercial, industrial, that sort of thing. And we've done the same for cultural. There's a lot of different options within that. And the same with Kai, food source. Now, underneath that, this is our question for visions. What improvements would you like to see and by when? And so this is just to help in gaining some initial feedback from the public on what their goals are for the future of freshwater in their FMU, or the places that are important to them. And that's just an open-ended question, submit at the end. We're also asking them what they think we need to protect, so what they think is good and what they'd like to keep. Outside of that, hold on, this is going to be a good challenge. We also have some other information on this site. We've just got an overview of what we're asking for and what a vision must, what a vision is required to have under the RPS. We have some freshwater news down the bottom so they can see the feedback we got from the last online engagement. There's a connection to the water quality reporting tool that Science is going to take you through, and then just a little bit of our journey so far. Just got some pretty pictures along this side of all the different FMUs, and a timeline of where we've been and where we're going, and then some contact details and documents down the bottom. Okay, now if I close that. Okay, Ruben sends his apologies, he's unwell today and can't make it, so I was just going to give you a quick update on Kaupapa Maori Engagement. We sent letters, vision letters to iwi in January of this year, and at this time there have been 12 responses from different iwi and hapu, and unfortunately with the Omicron outbreak, some iwi have had to reprioritise their workload to be all about COVID at the moment, so that's just delaying some of those engagements. We've been presenting to co-governance and tangata whenua advisory groups, so at the moment we have presented to the Rangataiki River Forum, Tauranga Moana Advisory Group and Te Marua o Kaituna, and we have Rotorua Te Arawalax Strategy Group and Ohiwa Harbour Advisory Forum coming up. We've also, after the previous Rangataiki River Forum meeting, we had an informal iwi hui where we had a great number of the iwi with interests in the Rangataiki attend and provide their feedback on the example vision, which was based on the RPS objectives for the Rangataiki River. And we have a follow-up meeting from that one scheduled for Friday. The surface water accounting tool was demonstrated to you last year, and just to let you know that that is being used to inform high-level science and policy work. And now I'll pass you over to James and Malia, who will present on the water quality reporting tool.
I just wonder, Gemma, thank you very much for that. I just wonder whether any councillors have any questions of your presentation. I can't see. Yep, Chairman Leader.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Gemma, could you just expand on the comment under Maori Engagement in terms of trying to develop policy, that serves a different purpose in the MPSFM? What does that actually mean?
Okay.
And what sort of policy will fall out of that?
Okay, so that was based around comments we received after the Rangataiki River Forum's meeting at the informal hui, and our example vision is based on the RPS objectives for the Rangataiki River that were developed after the river document was finalised. And one of their sort of concerns was that those RPS visions, those RPS objectives didn't meet what they wanted to see under the NPSFM. So there is the possibility, some of it was around wording, and so we'd have a better idea after this next meeting whether or not we can alleviate some of those concerns. And I think it's also about the whole National Objectives Framework process. So if they're particularly concerned about specific actions, if we can show them where those actions are going to be taking place. Is it in an action plan? Is it rules? Or is it specified in a vision or an environmental outcome? So I think some of it's just about working together and getting a bit more clarity about where everything sits in the process.
Are you okay with that, Chairman? Any further comment?
Thanks, Chair. Look, no, I'm not that clear. I really want to know whether they are, the objectives by Tangata Whenua are complementary, or they are going to add a challenge to the policy people in terms of adding to what's required under the NPSFM. But, you know, it's probably work in progress, and we'll have to wait and see, I think.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Winters, Councillor Nees and Councillor MacDonald. Councillor Winters.
Thank you, Chair. Gemma, you said 12 responses from all the different iwi and hapu. How many letters were sent out? Was it just iwi, or was it hapu or marae based, or?
From my knowledge of it, it was about 40 letters sent out, and it was to those that we have been engaging with that had confirmed their interest in being involved in the MPSFM process. Oh, so some of them may be hapu. Yep. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Nees.
Thank you. Just to check on the participate tool, have we got a way of making sure that people are only making one entry, and that we're not getting multiple entries from one person?
Well, so we did have multiple entries in the previous one because we didn't want to stop someone from providing more than one area that was important to them, or value that was important to them. For this one, I'm unsure of whether they have to have a name registered like we did last time, but I can double check that. There is no restrictions in terms of how much input they want to provide back. So some people may have interests in multiple FMUs, and we don't want to stop them from being able to provide input into the rangataiki and Aotearoa Lakes. But I think Stephanie is online and might be able to answer that question for you as well.
I think it's just important that if we have got multiple entries, we're able to see them, because otherwise, from our previous experience in IT, information management and surveys, you can get a very skewed result if you've got a very determined person who has got a particular view they want to get through.
Steph, are you available to answer that question?
Kia ora koutou, good morning. Through you, Madam Chair, we can set it so people need to sign in if we choose to, and that means we can identify individuals and they can make one submission. I think what Gemma's alluding to is she wants to encourage as broader participation as we can, and that can be a barrier to participation for some. So yeah, definitely an option.
So I just, when we get the information, I'd like to get that sort of analysis. Great that somebody goes in 2 or 3 times, but they shouldn't be providing 2 or 3 of the same opinions on the same FMU. So it's just something important. The other thing is that something that came up at the Tomorrow Katuna meeting on Friday was that Tangata Whenua didn't really like using online tools. And I think it's going to be really important that we try and maximise access and use of this tool, because we're not having a lot of public meetings at the moment. We are trying to have iwi meetings, but I think it's quite important that we spread access and encourage people as much as we can to have input, because the more input we get, the stronger base we've got to stand on. So just some assurances about our communication strategy and how far-reaching it's going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nees. Councillor MacDonald.
Kia ora, Gemma. Gemma, just kind of reiterating what I've already put, really, and that's around the synergy of what you're doing and what Pia Bennett is doing for Tauranga Moana. Also in the responses, I haven't seen who the responses are from, but I would gather that some of those responses are from collectives. So while it may appear that it's 12 responses, there may in actual fact be 50 or 60 responses within that 12. But getting back to the synergy that's required, I think, by ourselves with the work that Pia's done, how much of the work that Pia's done has influenced this paper?
So, through Madam Chair, Pia and I were in messaging after the Tauranga Moana meeting on Friday, and hopefully we will catch up sometime soon when she's available. In terms of for this paper, there's not a lot of involvement from, well, there's no involvement from Pia in providing or developing the Participate tool. It's an internal staff have been involved in developing that at this time.
Just again, Madam Chair, I guess therein lies my issue, Gemma. Therein lies my issue because of the work, comprehensive work that Pia has done in the community, but not with everybody, but I would say a majority of hapu within Tauranga Moana, hence my concern around the need to synergise with the work that she's actually done. And, you know, I raised this before, and if we're going out and speaking to hapu and iwi, I hope that we're not starting to cause confusion about what we're going to be discussing with hapu iwi and what Pia has already been discussing and collating and gathering for what she has presented to us. Because there's my concern, really.
Okay. Thank you. I think we were talking about two different things. So in terms of the Tauranga Moana space, yes, we will be working closely with Pia going forward. And in terms of engaging with iwi, I'd have to check that with Ruben. But our first point of contact there is the Tauranga Moana Advisory Group, which are all heavily involved with Pia's work. I'm unaware of our any further engagement with hapu or iwi outside of that at this time.
Thank you, Gemma, for your presentation. Now, I haven't got my glasses.
How do I register a question? Do I do it through the screen or?
You just put your hand up here, Councillor Clark.
Yes, yeah. Thank you very much. Hey, Gemma, how does this process evolve, considering, okay, sitting during the point I've been 5 years on the River Forum, knowing that this consultation was just with those iwi hapu exclusive. The consultation goes with them and is reported back to the River Forum that makes recommendations. Is that the context? And in the context of that, do then the full River Forum appointees, being those from the regional council and the district councils, are they entitled to some input into there before recommendations go forward? And if I just might add a more human side to the process, I had a conversation with a Maori person, male, on Saturday. He was born in Edgecombe, of East Coast descendants. He has spent his entire life on the river, knows the river backwards, and yet has had no role at all in any of the discussions, only right to have a role simply because of his birthright. And it's really interesting because his matauranga on that river, knowledge of the river, was equal to anything that any local iwi or hapu would actually ever have, because he was born to that river, but not of the bloodline that allows him to comment in that space. It's to sort of table that there. So any comments on the political process, please?
Okay, all right. So at the moment, I would say we are in a data collection phase. So there's no decision making going on with what a draft vision will look like at this time. It's just collecting tangata whenua and community input into that. The Rangataiki River Forum we will continue to present to for the rest of their meetings for the year and discuss essential freshwater with them. Outside of the Rangataiki River Forum, the informal iwi hui that we had afterwards was involved iwi that weren't in the Rangataiki River Forum as well. So everyone who had registered their interest in being involved in the NPSFM process. So, for example, the Central North Island Iwi Collective, Alamoti attended the meeting, but he's not part of the Rangataiki River Forum. So we do have a wider interest in iwi group input than just those that are on the forum. And in terms of engaging with the other councillors from the other councils, their input would primarily be through the Rangataiki River Forum at this stage. And in terms of your friend or the person you met from Edgecombe, I'd welcome their input either through this tool or if they wanted to meet with water policy staff, then that could potentially be organised as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Emma. So we're now going to.
I've been waiting my hand for some time for. I don't know if I'm not on your screen or not. But if I can chip in, now.
Sorry, David.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gemma, I just first of all want to congratulate you on what is an intricate and complex tool, and that in fact is my worry. In that, are we making it too intricate and complex for the average person to really engage? And my second point, which I'm more concerned about, is that these matters are of concern right across the community. So what are we doing to ensure that the views of right across the community are sought, as well as the target audience?
Gemma or Steph?
I guess my initial comment would be our target audience is everyone from right across the community. There is one challenge in the fact that this is an online tool. We are advertising through Freshwater Flash, through the local newspapers, Sun Live, the Beacon, and the Rotorua Weekender. So it's advertised both in newspaper and online, and through all our newsletters. Steph, did you want to add anything?
Kia ora, Gemma. Through you, Madam Chair, Kate Barnes, who's our communications advisor working on this project, gives her apologies for this meeting, but I know that she's working on a broad campaign looking to involve videos to connect with young people and families as well as those stakeholders we know who are already interested.
Thank you. Is that okay, Councillor Love? You're on mute. Couldn't hear what you said, David. Oh, well, we'll press on. So James Deere, environmental scientist, going to present to us now in relation to the science tools. So welcome to James. Can't hear.
I'll put the chamber on mute, Chair.
Through the chair, I'll see if I can try and unmute the chambers. I'm not sure we've just got a slight technical glitch at the moment.
There we are. Can you hear me now?
Yes, can. Welcome.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for having me along. My name is James Deere, and my colleague Malia Zagadlo is online. Hopefully she can hear me as well. So we're environmental scientists here at the council, and we've been doing a fair bit of work for the essential freshwater package in terms of the science approach. And we have developed another tool that will hopefully make things a little bit easier to get engaged in some of the work that we're doing, and we're going to share that with you today. So what I'm going to do is just give you a bit of an overview over why we decided to go with this particular tool, and then Malia will be able to take you through and show you exactly how to use it and how to get the best from it. So as you're probably aware that we're working on a number of tasks for the essential freshwater package. One particular task, task 7, was a bit of a monster of a task. It required us to calculate NPS attributes for every every site that we have for every program throughout the entire region. So it resulted in a lot of number crunching and a lot of really important information that is very useful for some people, but needs to be sort of summarized in terms of a bit of a report. But we always get people who want to delve into the actual numbers. Usually what we would do as a science team is put all of that into an appendix, but very quickly as we were going through this whole process, we realized that the appendix for this particular report would be in the order of 500 plus pages, just making the report completely unwieldy and not accessible to people. So what we wanted to do is to really engage our audience, to make our numbers clear to people, to allow people to get involved and ask questions and do all of those kind of things. So we have employed something called a Shiny app. And so this is a particular app. We've presented other Shiny apps to council in terms of the Lakes Water Quality dashboard, but it allows the public to actually get engaged in some of the data through a website online, and to explore and to do whatever they want and to filter out different things. So rather than presenting a very large report that would probably sit on someone's shelf, we now have a summary report that we're almost finished. And then instead of the appendix, we have this online portal, which we think is much more accessible to everyone. So that's how we came to have the water ecology tool, or WEP for short. And now hopefully Malia will take you through and show you exactly what it is and how you can use it.
Kia ora, James. I'm Morty Nakoto. Hopefully you can all see my screen. This is where the tool, the WET, lives. So it's on an environmental data portal. And it lives in here so that it covers the terms of use that come with using the data portal. So it's under the dashboard tab and water quality rivers. If we scroll down, you can see the app or the tool in here, but it's actually much easier if you click here and open it in a tab of its own, then it fills in the whole page. So the tool opens on this landing page. There's a few words here, which is sort of describing, as James was talking about, this is a reporting tool. So it's not live data. It's the data that sits behind our report. So these words here hopefully make that clear. And once the technical report is finished, we'll link it into these words as well. There's also a whole lot of other links in here that we've thought of that people might be interested in. There's some fact sheets that, so if I click on this, it takes us to a fact sheet that talks about what the indicators are that we look at, hopefully describes a bit of the terminology that's in the tool. We'll also have some snapshots which are being developed from the report, and it also links to the NPS and things. And then down here, this is just a visual representation to show how many monitoring sites we have, how much monitoring council does, and lists the different programs in here. So this is more just a visual look here. But if we click on the tab here, map, this is probably the tab we expect most people would be using. This obviously a map of our region here, and we can choose all the different monitoring programs down here. So at the moment it's on river water quality. If we click on bathing water quality, those dots there change. Obviously a lot of these words not everyone's going to understand, so we do have some help text and pop-ups here. We can, if selecting the indicator, it's got an explanation here which then links to some fact sheets as well. So you can either view by freshwater management unit, or we've also put in rohe here. When you select rohe, it just comes up with where these boundaries have come from. And this is based on the layer that council, GIS layer that council holds. The main difference between looking between FMU and rohe is that FMU, you'll see here, we can see the boundaries and select off the map. And at rohe, just because there are a lot of, it looks a bit more like spaghetti junction, it was just going to make the map quite messy. So you have to select from the drop-down menu rather than on the map. So the way that it works, you can select an FMU. If we select Tauranga Moana, can select a indicator. So if we look at ammoniacal nitrogen, and then we have these statistics or parameters that you can look at in here. These are all explained in the help pop out as well. So if we want to look at the current state, then the map comes up with the colours of which band they fall in. We can also look at the baseline state, which has some changes, and trend as well. We do have placeholders for target attribute states and interim target attribute states, but these are blank at the moment because they're obviously not determined at the moment. And then for those that want to get into a bit more detail, you can click on the table format, which this top part is the same as the page before, but it also has a table down here with a bit more information. So if we select all the sites, this biophysical land class, this is how we've classified some of our analysis. So there's some options here which are based around the geology and land use. So we might have volcanic, high gradient, exotic forestry. So if you're just interested in a specific land use, then you can filter through that way. So if we just select ammonia, then all these sites come along here. So we've got the FMU, the site, the attribute, the banding, we've got the numeric number for that banding as well, trend, the placeholders for the target attribute states, and the biophysical unit. So it just gives a bit more detail if people were after the numbers. And the cool thing, you can download this table and it will pop it out into a Excel sheet, which basically just has that table in a spreadsheet format. There we go. So it allows people to download that data. The next tab is a bit more detail. We envisage this is probably more useful for us internally with policy and science, but other people might be interested as well. It's trying to summarize the state and trends for each site for us. So if we do have a bit of an explanation in here of what it all means, but basically it's got the bandings on the x-axis here and the rate of change for the trend on the y-axis here. So for example, this is for ammonia. This is all the river water quality sites in the region. And we can see that most of them are to the left of this green dashed line. So they're in the A band. But we can see that this site here, for example, is in the A band, but it's come out with a very likely worsening trend at a higher percentage change. So that identifies as one that we probably want to investigate a bit further. On the other end of the scale, we've got one that's already in the A band, but it's also increasing, very likely improving, sorry, at a high percentage change as well. So it just helps pull out some sites that we might want to investigate further for us. And then we've just got this tab here that has a few more sort of notes. Some of the results have some asterisks next to them, so it's describing what those are and describing the trends as well. And that is a brief overview of the tool. So yeah, if you have any questions.
Okay, wow. Mind-blowing. Welcome, Councillor Thurston. Questions? Anybody got any questions? Can't see any digital
Yes,
hands.
please.
Yes, Councillor.
Yes, right, and I was cut off from making my comment on the last presentation as well when we were muted here, but it's the same comment for this one as well. We are expecting, as far as I can see, anybody who wants to respond to have quite a degree of computer literacy and indeed access to computers. And if that is the case, and this is the only way of inputting, then we are disenfranchising those people who are not computer literate, who don't have access. So how are we ensuring we get information from, or how do we give information to, and get information from those people not online?
Someone else might want to answer, but I guess for us, we just see this as one tool for communicating the information we have. Started out as being a useful tool for us internally to view the data, and then we realised that it would have good potential for the community in iwi as well. So it's not the only tool that we use, but it is one that we thought would be useful for some people.
So Rob,
there's nothing to stop us taking these to community presentations as well. And so when we have those community presentations, we take this tool, and I mean, all of the analyses is done there, and it can make it easy for us to print things out and hand out forms and that kind of thing. So yes, I agree with you that I mean, there is a subset of the audience there that we're not reaching with this, but we can use this to leverage to those people.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I do appreciate the difficulty, and we're never going to reach everybody, but I just want to make sure we are striving to do so. Thank you.
Okay, I can see that I've got Councillor MacDonald, Councillor Nees and Chairman Leader. Councillor MacDonald.
Kia ora, thanks for the presentation. Hey, I think it's a great presentation. Fantastic that we're sharing the information. But I just want to ask the question, you know, are you looking at making videos of all of this? I just think, you know, if you did a video, I think it'd be easier if we could to share with our communities. I'm just thinking about constituents within my own constituency doing a lot of work that this would be fantastic information. And I'm just wondering if you put a video together, you know, we could just flick the video out with you guys describing how you describe this video. I'm just thinking about, you know, how we disseminate this information. And for me, you know, so the videos that we put on website are awesome. I think this would be great too if we did a video. You know, I could see the benefit of how I could circulate this within our Hapu RMU units that would be really interested in this information.
James?
Yeah, that's a really good idea. And we are just coming to the end of drawing up the Task 7 report. And so we've literally just finalised this tool. But the communications is the next step. And that sort of sits more in sort of Steve's realm. But that's a really good idea, creating these kind of videos. We have had positive feedback from other videos that we've produced in the past. And yeah, I really like that.
Councillor Nees, then Chairman Leader.
Oh, thank you. I noted in some of the trend data, for example, in Tauranga Moana, we have Little Waihi estuary is very likely declining, and Uretara very likely declining. I presume they're the areas that those two downward arrows are pointing to. I'm also conscious that there's a lot of work going on in those areas. You know, you have Project Korori, you have Waikokapu in the Little Waihi estuary, and there's some very determined people that are doing a huge amount of work to try and reverse that trend. And I'm just wondering if that's something that we could do in the future, is link to the work that's being done practically on the ground, to show people that we're not just putting up with this, that we're actually doing real work and supporting real work on the ground to try and turn the trends around, because that would extend the relevance of this tool, I think, to the people that are actually very concerned about the quality of our water. They just look at those downward arrows, they'll be thinking, oh, this is terrible, you know, things are going to keep on getting worse. But in fact, we're very hopeful that they're going to turn around.
Yeah, so we've always viewed this tool as going through a number of iterations and we're not quite there yet. We originally designed it as an internal tool, and then we realised how important it could be to people outside of the organisation as well. So we developed, we took it back to the developer and got the whole front end developed on it, and now we've got a much more professional looking tool. There's nothing to stop us taking those extra steps in the future. So yeah, we're looking to obtain as much feedback as possible so we can make this as good as we can for our community.
Chairman Leader.
Thanks, Chair. It's I've got a series of questions, but they're all interrelated, and I see Rob with us, so he may be best to answer this. So essentially, is this tool Toi Moana specific? And I take some of it may well be in terms of the water quality scientists, but at the national level or the national scale, is there compatibility with the requirement that's coming not only from other regional councils, because at our regional sector we put a lot of effort into not having 14 different models, and I know there will be some regional variances, but is there a segment of this that can feed into the national framework database that will complement what others are doing? And then also sitting in that data portal for wanting to know what's going on is the likes of MFE. And the recent discussion with them, they were saying, can we have a discussion with the regional sector CEs in terms of what is the best way to get a whole lot of this data feeding into MFE? So the question is, has it been considered? And has this whole issue of data operability and what is required as a baseline as opposed to what might be required by us, being through the likes of the SIGs.
Will I have a crack at that, Madam Chair?
Yes, go.
I think your first question was about a little bit about the platform. So the Shiny app is universally available if other councils want to pick it up. And James might want to come in here and describe the process, but it is quite a lot of work region by region to do this, but the platform is something that every region could hook into, certainly. In terms of the data feeding up to central government, the LAWA platform is also receiving this exact same data, although it is processed in other ways in LAWA. So currently, you know, if MFE want access to this data, it's sitting in LAWA for every regional council in the country. So we're kind of part of the way there in terms of making that data easily accessible to government and others on a national scale. So I think the answer is yes, that is happening, but LAWA is not the end answer. It's kind of a pathway to something better down the track, which I think really needs to be led by central government myself, but councils have done a lot of work to make it available.
Satisfied, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, but what's the answer to, has this approach been discussed at the SIGs? Because unless it's discussed at that sort of forum, you know, it won't get rolled out in terms of pick up by other councils.
Yeah, I'm sure James will be able to answer that.
Yeah, so it's definitely something that we intend to take to SWIM. We think that this is a really good tool that really showcases where we are at as a council, and that other councils may be really interested in using something similar. So there are a couple of SIG groups, well, from my perspective anyway. There's the SWIM group, and there's also a new SIG group called the Environmental Informatics Group, which is designed at creating tools that can be replicated in different councils so that we're all doing the same things in the same ways. So yes, it is definitely on our list of things to do, to take it to that group and also to get feedback at the national level as well.
Great. Satisfied, Chairman? That's good. Thank you, James. Any further questions? I can't see any. So James and Gemma, thank you very much for your presentations. Quite mind-blowing, really, but thank you. Much appreciated. I'm now going to move that the public be excluded for the next section of the workshop. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nees, thank you. Going to move that. All those in favour, aye, against, carried. And now we're going to move on to RPS change 6.